Morning. Good morning, good morning, good morning. There we are. All right, everybody coming through. Let's see that now. Everybody coming in. Woo! Instagram. Hi, Instagram. Hi, Facebook. Two slightly different cameras because I'm like the most professional content creator you've ever met. Super profesh over here. So yeah, it's 11 o'clock. Let's get going. Why not? It's 11 o'clock my time. So let's get going, shall we? Let's do it. Hey, hey. My name's Dr. Shannon Coates, and my pronouns are she, her, or they, them. I am coming to you live. Let me just pull up the information that I would like to use. There it is. I'm coming to you live from a small town north of Toronto in Canada. You can tell that I am Canadian and from Ontario because I say it Toronto. I live and work on the traditional lands of the Haudenosaunee, the Anishinaabe, the Mississauga, and the Wendake Neo-Tsio peoples here in this small town in which I live, and for the most part work now. You know, do a lot of my work from up here in this small town. Boop, boop. Hey, hey. So, today, welcome to Live Office Hours. I'm a singer, I'm an educator, and a maximizer of voice pedagogy. A pedagogy maximizer, if you will. And I offer resources, develop resources and courses and classes, etc. for voice teachers, mostly independent voice teachers, but lots of academic teachers. I work with lots of academic teachers as well, but mostly independent voice teachers. And, well, let me put it this way. My stuff is aimed at independent voice teachers, especially your sort of typical generalist, if you will, independent voice teacher or coach. And, if y'all academics or specialists want to get in on the action, feel free. That's what I'm saying. And so one of the classes that's coming up that I'm doing something new with this time around. So this time around I'm also offering workshops. So one of the classes that's coming up called Diagnostics 101. This is a class about where we're deconstructing and examining, if you will, some of our assumptions around the importance of diagnosticing, nice, diagnosing, and the skill of diagnosing in the voice studio, and oh, hey, Liz Jackson Hearns, hi, and the skill and the value that we tend to place on diagnostic skills in the voice studio. And so that lecture, if you will, that's a 90-minute lecture with a 30-minute Q&A afterwards. That is basically a deconstruction as well as of where these ideas come from, medical model, some of those educational models, etc., where these ideas come from about how and why we want to and why we embrace this sort of diagnostic methodology in our voice studios and in our teaching. So we talk about that a little bit, and then we also talk about some practical application for how to not do that. How to do some, and also we talk about why that philosophical underpinning of in order to be an effective voice teacher, I must be able to diagnose. Yes, yeah. I'm unpacking it a little bit in the class, to some of the history, some of the context, why we think about why we seem to have this as a value in our teaching, and we talk about that a little bit, and we talk about some practical application, how to do why that model tends to lead to teacher-centered learning or teacher-centered pedagogy versus student-led and student-centered pedagogy, and some of the outcomes of that, and then how to start to intentionally incorporate or build on some of the student-led pedagogy or learning that you are already doing in your voice studio. So that's what we do in the class. And then the workshops are small, limited, 5 people only. In the workshops, and there are several different ones you can choose from depending on your time zone, what works best for you. The workshops are about talking it through. So when I did Diagnostics 101 in last year, in December, if I remember correctly, there were several during the Q&A, there was a lot of sort of like, okay, but how would you work with this? What would you do with this? How would you deal with blah, blah, blah? And then there were also folks who were like, okay, but I really wanted an answer to XYZ. I really wanted to know how to work with XYZ. And when I hear this, what am I hearing? So what I thought might be useful, this is, like I said, first time, let's try it out, let's see what happens, is to offer some workshops. So in those workshops, that then will be the time. It's sort of like an extended but super applying, in real time kind of Q&A. So in those workshops, you are very welcome to bring those kinds of questions. Yes, but what will I do with XYZ? Yes, but you are also welcome to assuming you get permission from the singer you're working with, you are also welcome to bring in a 3 to 5 minute clip that we can take a look at and talk about. So that's fun and new. Okay, all that aside, let's talk a little bit about today, talking about the idea of fixing versus supporting learning. Now, I think in my posts I said something about fixing versus teaching, and I think that's what I actually titled this sucker, the thing that you're watching right now. I titled it Fixing versus Teaching, but really it's about the philosophical underpinning of our pedagogy that preferences the idea that I need to fix the singer I'm working with over I need to support the singer's learning. And I know that for lots of us, those two things may seem like the same thing, right? We may seem like, yeah, but if we're working toward fixing something, that's them learning, is it not? So I can see there's a lot of sort of, we take a lot of things in without thinking about them, right? Because that's what has been modeled, and that is what we have seen, and that is how we have experienced voice lessons ourselves, for example, where we are going to an expert, and the expert's job is to tell us what needs to be fixed and how to fix it. So the reason we are paying the expert, the reason we're paying our very not cheap fees for schools, for example, and the reason we're working with XYZ teacher or expert is because we are told that we are paying for the services of someone who can diagnose, who can tell us how to fix it, right? Who can diagnose what's wrong and tell us how to fix it. And a lot of our pedagogy texts are based around that. So the 3 indicators that I think may be useful to kind of start to think through, wait a minute, am I thinking about my teaching or my role in the studio as the expert in the studio as one of fixing or as one of supporting learning? Some of the questions you can ask yourself are, is my first instinct to diagnose the voice, to think about what's not happening, what's wrong, what needs to be fixed, what is unhealthy, lots of that as well. And then to describe the voice to the singer, I know, stinky. Someone put a thumbs down. And then to describe the voice to the singer for their own good and or because they have paid us for this, or because they've asked for it, or because that's part of our process where we give them a report. That may be part of our process where we give them a report of like the things that you're not doing well yet, the miscoordinations we see. So we describe the voice or the coordination to the singer in terms of their deficits and in terms of what needs to be fixed, right? So we're thinking in that way, the singer is also thinking in that way. And then we assign exercises or, work or practice routines or repertoire that is going to, songs, we assign songs, that is going to help them to fix their problem, right? So this is a medical model. This is a handed down medical model. This is also something that we have taken from our education system. There are lots of instances in lots of our systems where the expert is, the reason that the expert is because they are going to tell us what's wrong and they're going to tell us how to fix it. We often couch this, I'm not telling them what's wrong. I'm telling them what they need to know in order to be successful. I'm not telling them what's wrong. I'm preparing them for real life. I'm not telling them what's wrong. I'm preparing them for their career that they told me they wanted. I'm not telling them what's wrong or what they need to fix. I am telling them, yes, therapy versus therapeutic, release the medical model. 100%, yes. I'm not telling them what's wrong. I'm not telling them what they need to fix. I am giving them the information that they need so that they can be the best singer they can be. Okay, yes, and that is a misunderstanding to my mind of what it means to be an expert in the voice studio and what it means to be an educator. So if we are saying to ourselves, if we are thinking to ourselves, if what we want in the voice studio is to be an educator, is to be someone who supports learning, that means we take several steps back in the voice studio and we preference the singer and their learning ahead of our expertise in terms of what is wrong with them. So what often happens is that we get this idea from so many different sources, our pedagogy textbooks, our pedagogy classrooms, the voice teachers who come to me for consults and to work on their pedagogy, anatomy, physiology, all of that. We start from the position that I want to work in a student-led way. I love supporting singers. I want to be the most effective educator I can be. I want to be an effective voice teacher. We start from that position. But then we don't necessarily think through what that actually means in terms of how I'm delivering information, what I'm saying to the singers I work with, and how I'm supporting actual learning, like how I'm actually supporting learning, right? What we do instead is we say, in order to be that educator, everything around me, all of my voice ped texts, my voice pedagogy class, all of the people I've worked with have told me that in order to be an effective educator, what I have to do in the voice studio is I have to know what's wrong with the singer and I have to know how to fix it, because that's what it means to be an effective educator. Don't get me wrong. I do not think that it is a problem to know lots about anatomy and physiology of the voice. That is not what I am talking about. I'm not talking about having And I think it's fantastic to have excellent diagnostic skills or to, have a good ear, if you will. That's all wonderful. It's not about the actual knowledge, it's about the actual pedagogy and the reason we are acquiring this knowledge. So what happens when we think of when the philosophical, excuse me, I'll get there. I promise. I'm coming. What happens when the philosophical underpinning of our pedagogy, in other words, the thing that we think will make us the most effective teacher? So the philosophical underpinning of our pedagogy is that our role is to fix the singer by diagnosing, describing what's wrong with the voice, and then prescribing exercises, right? So what happens? What that does is, like I said in the post that I posted yesterday, first of all, we will feel shame around our and insecurity and imposter syndrome around our lack of understanding of anatomy and physiology, around our lack of exercises, understanding of tool exercises and what they're supposed to do, around our lack of understanding about being able to hear what the singer is and describe sounds back to the singer. We will feel shame around those, quote, diagnostic skills, the information that we have, because we think that that is our role, is to fix the singer we're working with, right? Or, on the other side, we will be very, very proud of them. We will be so proud of the robustness of our diagnostic skills, and we will look down on the teachers who do not have the robust skills that we have to diagnose in the voice studio. We are amazing. We know all of the information. So we have all of the information we need, and also we can tell a cry from a creek from a mile away. Also, I can tell you how to do it. So, yeah, Liz, I want to get to that too. That's such a good point. Again, do you see how how teacher-centered that becomes? So I'm either feeling inadequate, feeling shame, imposter syndrome around my perceived lack of diagnostic skills, because someone has told me that that is the best way to be a voice teacher. Or lots of pride, and I think that anybody who can't do that, well, they're not great, right? They're not very good at their job. I'll give you let's come back to that. The other thing that we do is we judge the singers we're working with. We assess their progress by whether or not they are doing changing their voice in the way that we think they should, right? And we take credit for their progress when they do make progress toward doing the thing that we think they should be doing. And we blame them when they don't do the thing we think they should be doing. So how many courses, how many Instagram, TikTok, Facebook professionals have you seen where they're like, this is a proven methodology. You are going to solve these problems. Here is the solution to this thing. And then in the fine print, it's like, if you work hard, if you apply these consistently, if you do them every day. So do you see that fine print is actually, I will take all of the credit for when you do the thing that I think you should do in the way that I told you to do it, and I will blame you because you didn't do it the way I told you to do it. You didn't work hard enough. You didn't, you didn't do it every day. You weren't disciplined enough. Clearly, you're a lazy student. Do you see how that becomes so disgusting? Where this is completely teacher-centered. I am the expert, and because you didn't do the thing that I told you to do in the way that I told you to do it, then that's your fault that it didn't work. Versus if you do the thing, clearly it's mine. Your progress is mine. That is nasty and gross, right, Amanda? I know, it's disgusting. But it comes out all the time. And it comes out all the time in lots of different ways. Oh yes, they're such a great student. They really work so hard. Yeah, I don't like that student. It's really hard to work with that student. They're super lazy. They don't practice enough. Not my fault when they don't do the thing that I told them to do and they don't progress in the way that I told them to progress. Totally all mine when they do. That's gross. Anyway, the other thing we do when we are teacher-centered, when we are thinking that the singers are coming to us because of our expertise and that our job as the expert in the studio is to fix them, is to diagnose, to describe their voice in terms of what they need to fix, and then to give them the exercises and the prescription in order to fix it, right? What else happens? We get real angry at our students. This happened recently, didn't it? Those of you who have seen that post and all of the other things, you know which one I'm talking about. There's a post out there going around from someone lambasting his students for being lazy and not taking advantage of their opportunities and not showing up and worried for the future generations of music makers, because they're not going to be, they're not taking advantage of all of the opportunities that they have, blah, blah, blah. What happens when it is teacher-led and teacher-centered, when your singing is teacher-centered because you have fireworks. I don't think I tried to do the fireworks on Instagram. Facebook, you must be so sad that you didn't see those fireworks. Anyway, Instagram, I don't know. Is there some kind of thing that Instagram is now putting fireworks in there? Or did someone else do that? I don't know. Maybe someone else did that. Who knows? Anyway. We get real angry at the students because they're not showing us the respect that we deserve. And also, they're not taking advantage of the things that we are offering them. And also, they don't realize how good they have it. And also, they aren't going to be able to have a career because they're not showing up in the way that I told them they have to show up. And also, don't they know who I am? They don't know how fortunate they are to study with someone like me. I'm an expert. And I can tell them what's wrong with them and how disrespectful of this generation, right? It often gets couched in the this generation. Friends, this is not new. Every generation says this about the next generation. Every friggin' generation says this generation, so ungrateful. They don't have it the way. Every generation. Get over yourself. Anyway, so what happens, right? If I am centered as the expert, if I am centering myself as the expert, right? Kids these days. We've heard kids these days. The forgotten generation said that about the boomers. The boomers said that about my generation. We said it about the next generation. Every single generation says it about the next generation. Kids these days, they don't know how lucky they have it. Dude, when I am centering myself, and then I'm also couching this in, I'm just worried about this generation, or it's just time for tough love. They've been coddled. Everyone gets a reward. Okay, that is teacher-centric language. That when you say that out loud, I think, oh wow, there's an educator who does not understand their role as an educator. There's an educator who is intent on centering themselves in the learning experience, who thinks that the learning experience revolves around them and their expertise, and who thinks that their expertise is what gives them the positionality, the right to tell other people what is wrong with them. They do not understand what it means to be an educator. No, they do not. Okay. What else happens? We get real territorial about who gets to study with us, don't we? If I'm an expert and you're not taking my expertise seriously in the way that I think that you should be taking it, and you're not taking you're not showing me the respect that I deserve as the expert that I am, then you don't deserve to study with me. And also, you don't get to decide who you want to study with because you don't know better. I know what's best for you and your voice. So then we get folks in institutions, we get folks in our Western classical, in our independent studios, in all of the places saying, well, you need to get permission from your teacher to study with someone else, or I need to have permission from XYZ. Does there need to be an understanding of how to healthily and respectfully, in the right sense of the word, in the sense of like, I respect you because you are a human being and a colleague, not I respect you because you're an authority and you're demanding it of me. Those are two different ways of respecting, right? And so, like, does there need to be an understanding of that? Yes, absolutely. But dudes, my guys, if I am working in a student-led, student agency supporting way, I am going to the singers I am working with, I am joyful when they say, I have learned all of these things and I know what kind of learner I am and I love all of the things that we have worked on together. What do you think about me working with so and so to sort out XYZ, or because I've heard that they do this thing? We're joyful because they're not our little we don't own them, y'all. We do not own them. Also, in a collegiate setting, these are friggin' adults. We're talking about adults here. We're talking about adults. Not only that, we're talking about adults who are paying an exorbitant amount of money. An exorbitant amount of money. And if you are working in a teacher-centered way where you are the expert and you are the only person who's going to be able to tell them what's wrong with them and give them the prescription so that they can fix it, you are going to be real territorial about, like I said, who gets to study with you, eh? Yes! We're not the owners. We're going to be real territorial about who gets to study with us, who gets the immense pleasure of hearing our wisdom. And we're going to be real territorial about real scarcity mindset about them. You don't know me, I know. We're going to get real territorial about who gets to about singers making decisions for themselves. Because clearly we are the only ones. We are experts on their voices, apparently. If I am student-led, if I am supporting learning and agency in the voice studio, I can trust the singer I am working with to make the decisions that are right for them. If I think it's the wrong decision, so what? Maybe I need to examine that a little bit. If I think it's the wrong decision, maybe I need to examine that a little bit. Don't get me wrong. There are lots of instances. Predatory teaching is a thing. Predatory teaching practices is a thing. But what do? We work with singers so that they have agency to make decisions and they can recognize this person is a predatory teacher. They keep saying that I'm gonna like progress so much faster if I work with them instead of you. What do? I say, ooh, that's really interesting. Let's talk about your goals. Let's talk about what your success looks like. Let's talk about what success means for you. Let's talk about what you still want to see more of in your voice. And then let's talk about whether or not, let's see whether or not, I'm not going to say, oh no, they're just a predator. I mean, I might defend, but I'm not going to say that. I'm going to say, let's talk about it. You get to make decisions for yourself. And also, let's figure out some costs here. So like, let's do a little bit of cost benefit analysis here. Like, let's figure out what that teacher has to offer. Perhaps that teacher has something to offer that I may not be offering. You can make decisions. So our role is not to tell singers, no, you shouldn't do that. Our role is to say, let's figure out, what do you want? What does success look like for you? How will you know when you are successful? How will you know when you are accomplishing the things you want to accomplish? And will that teacher support those goals and support your success in that way? And if they won't, but you do think that they have something else they can offer you that you would like, then that's a cost. You have to decide, okay, I may be willing to pay the cost of not going farther on this path in order to get farther on this path. You're allowed to make those decisions. Adults especially, you're allowed. All right. The other thing that happens, and I kind of covered this already, is that we actually I already covered that. So we lose sight of our students' humanity. We lose sight of our students' agency. It becomes all about my role in the studio. We assume that the reason a student may not be doing XYZ, may not be performing in the way that we think they should, may not be behaving in the way we think they should, may not be showing up for, what was it, an 8 a.m. class in that post? Because for whatever reason, we assume and we say, oh, all of those excuses are terrible. We look at students as if they are terrible people. We lose sight of their actual humanity because they're not respecting us anymore. Yeah. That's gross. It's gross. Let me tell you two things. Let me tell you two little anecdotes. One, and I've said this before on this in the socials, etc. I teach one class. I teach one class at the university level, which I've taught for years, and I've actually taught this. I've taught undergraduate voice pedagogy at a couple of different institutions, and I've been teaching at this particular one for a long time. It is a 10 a.m. class. So, not 8, but it is 10. It's not, and in order for me to be on time for that class, it's a lot of work because I live outside of the university, like I live outside of the city, and I've got to take, transit. It's like, it's a lot of work. I have to get up real early, all that stuff. And in Canadian winters, trust me, I don't want to do it. So, yeah, it's a pain in the ass for me to be there. So I don't always. I often teach online. Thank you to the pandemic for showing that this is actually an excellent, it's great. It works. Fine. I do not have an attendance policy in that class because I'm working with adults. And what I say at the beginning of the class, in the very first class, is, hey, you're adults. You get to make decisions about whether or not you want to be in this class. You get to make those decisions. And I honor your decision. You don't have to tell me. I'd love a courtesy email if you're not going to be there. I'd love that. But you don't have to tell me because I don't need you to make up excuses. I don't need you to lie to me. I'm not going to force you to lie to me. I trust you when you say you can't come to the class. I trust you when you say, I don't care. I don't care because I trust you to make the decisions that are right for you. If you're having if you need some mental health downtime, great. I want you to take it. If you need if you're sick, I don't want you in the class anyway, right? I don't want you getting everybody else sick. You don't want to be there. You're not doing your best learning. If you just don't want to get out of bed that day, great. I don't care. I don't need to know. If you have so much work from everything else that you need to not come to class that day, 100%. So I don't have an attendance policy. I don't have a participation policy. I don't have grades. I don't lock the door at the hour so they can't get in if they're late. I don't friggin' care. And I support their ability to get the information outside of coming to class. So they can Zoom in. Every single one of my classes, whether they're in person or on Zoom, you can join by Zoom. So you can join by Zoom, even if I'm in the classroom teaching it, you can join by Zoom from your bed if you want to. I don't care. You can come in person if you want to. Every single class is recorded and uploaded to the learning platform. It's easy peasy for me to do, and I just do it. And so then you can get that information in multiple different ways. Do you know what has happened? Do you know what has happened since I have started doing this for the last like 2, 3 years? I have 100% attendance, maybe like 99% attendance rates for a 10 a.m. class. Like 99% attendance rates. So what that tells me is that A, when you give students agency, singers, especially when we're talking about adults in collegiate institutions, when you say to them, I trust you to make the decisions that are right for you, and I'm going to support you, I'm going to offer you options so that you can get the information in any way that works best for you. They're going to do what works best for them, and in most cases, they're going to come to every single class. You know what the other thing is? I'm a really good educator. Like, I'm a really good lecturer. I am. So, like, also, you know what else needs to happen? You need to also make your class worth coming to. If your students aren't coming to your class or to your choir rehearsals or to whatever it is that you are mad at them for not coming to, take a look at your pedagogy. Why don't you check out and see whether or not you would want to attend that class? It's not about you. Thinking of an English lit teacher I had who would make students stand in front of the class and sing. Not in a voice class, for students who were 1 second late, literally to embarrass them. Shame does not do anything. Shame is a terrible motivator. It's a terrible motivator. And you know what happens when we do that, when we work with that kind of motivation? We force them to lie to us. We force students. The students will lie to us. If we're doing the same thing, if we're doing that in the voice studio, what happens? Parents are like, oh, I'm sorry, my kid is really sick. Sarah, I love it. Office hours at 8 a.m. That's it. Nicely done. In your robe and coffee. But see, like, that's the thing. I'm not taking attendance. We're just here doing the thing, you know? So when we give students agency and we decenter ourselves, good things happen. The other thing that I wanted to talk about is I was working with one of the singing teachers in the voice ped undergrad this week, and that teacher was talking about how they as they lean into their values as a teacher, as they recognize how their values for student-led agency, supporting learning, how those values, which they had always valued, when they start to lean into those in an intentional way and teach in an intentional way, incorporating those values, and what that looks like in the studio, which is what we do in the VPUD, is we take those values and we make them explicit. Here's how to actually do this in the studio. And interestingly enough, as I have said before, this is all just really great pedagogy. It's just, anyway. When we lean into those values and we start to teach with those, understanding our philosophy around student-led learning, understand our philosophy around supporting learning and agency in the studio, understanding the philosophy around decentering ourselves as the expert in the studio, understanding how decentering ourselves as the expert means that, oh wait, I'm not here to diagnose you. I'm not here to tell you what's wrong with your voice, and I'm not here to fix you. I'm not here to prescribe things so that you can get better. When we start to decenter ourselves and we start to really think through what it means that I'm not here to diagnose and describe your voice in negative terms and also to prescribe the thing that's going to fix you. This teacher said, I'm doing the most fun teaching I've ever done in my life. All of the imposter syndrome around not being able to hear what's happening, around perhaps not knowing enough, around not being able to, tell them what's what exercise is going to work for their voice to, like, fix their voice. All of that imposter syndrome is like a burden just left, just taken right off my shoulders. And now I'm doing the easiest teaching I've ever done. And we were talking about the fact that while this teacher knew that the teaching wasn't easy, and knew that they had imposter syndrome around some of these things, and knew that they were insecure about these things, and had some shame around them as well. While they knew it, they thought that that's the way it should be. They thought that that's the way it was supposed to be, because it was an internal failing on their part, because they weren't the expert they were supposed to be. And so they thought that they were supposed to have shame. They thought that they were supposed to, oh my gosh, I'm going to cry. Coming back. They thought that they were supposed to have shame around not knowing enough, around not being able to diagnose, around not knowing all of the exercises. So it's not just the fact that folks may think, okay, I'm not as good a diagnostician as I would like to be, and I don't know as much about the sounds that I'm hearing as I would like to, and I don't know all of the exercises yet, and I don't know how to apply all the exercises yet. Recognizing that that is what's happening in your head, and that you have imposter syndrome around that. For example, I know I may not be using that imposter syndrome correctly. I think there's some other ways to use it now. But recognizing that we have these insecurities, which leads to you not charging what you need to charge in order to support yourself and live the life that you would like to live from, right? It leads to undercharging. It leads to you devaluing your lessons. It leads to you not getting the clients who you can work best with, because you are constantly thinking, okay, I've got to work with this singer only because that's the thing that I know how to do. Constantly, right? It leads to so many things. Knowing that all of those things are in place, we're not going to change them if we think that they should be there. So part of what happens in the Diagnostics 101 class is we talk about how that is false. You do not need to teach with insecurity, imposter syndrome around these things. That supposes that you are supposed to be an expert in a way that you are not supposed to be an expert. And when we start to take these things off, we start to intentionally examine what it looks like to do student-led learning, teaching, what it looks like to intentionally apply our values to our pedagogy, the teaching gets easier. This particular teacher came into the VPOD saying, I really want to work in groups because I don't love working one-on-one. It's a lot of work. It's de-energizing. Like, I feel like it's hard. I'm not sure that I'm good at it, etc. I really love being in front of a group, and that's fantastic. And in the 4 months that we've been working now, almost 4 months, this teacher has said, I've gone from thinking, well, I guess I can do maybe 6 hours of this kind of teaching, to like, how can I fit in 15 of one-on-one lessons? Because when we remove this, when we start to actually teach in the way that aligns with our values, when we start to see what that looks like, when we start to decenter ourselves as the expert, and we start to put the student in the seat of supporting their agency and supporting their learning, the teaching becomes so easy and joyful, ease-filled and joyful. All right. We're going to talk a little bit more about this in Diagnostics 101 in the class. The registration for that class opens on Monday. And like I said, we're going to do some workshops as well. So feel free to get in on that action if this is speaking to you. This is the Diagnostics 101 is, like I said, it is the class itself is it's a little bit of a deconstruction, a little bit of like, hey, here's where this comes from, where we feel like we're supposed to be the diagnostician. We feel like our role in the voice studio is, and what singers expect of us is to, diagnose and to describe the voice in terms of its deficits, and then to prescribe the thing that's going to fix the voice. We talk about where that comes from. We talk about a little bit more in depth about what that means for our teaching, and then we talk about some of the practical ways to move forward and to start to turn that around. Not only do we talk about the practical ways to do that, but we also talk about overwhelmingly the feedback from the last time I did this class was, first of all, this is the best class I've ever taken with you. Love it. But also, I can see how I was reaching for this already in my teaching, and now that we've done this work to make it explicit, I'm gonna be really intentional about building on the things that I'm doing, and I'm gonna leave behind the things that I felt like I should be doing, but that I never really liked anyway. What? Right. So there's some validation that's going to come through. You're going to feel some validation there, and also some practical, how do I move forward with this? There's some, worksheets and all that kind of stuff too that are part of this class. So none of us, very few of us, I think, want the philosophical underpinning of our pedagogy to be that I am the expert, and therefore I'm going to tell you what's wrong, and I'm going to draw on my expertise to tell you, to diagnose your voice, tell you what's wrong, and then to prescribe something to fix it. Very few of us, I think, want that as the philosophical underpinning of our pedagogy. However, that is often where we end up, and I would love the opportunity to talk to you about changing that. So hope to see you in Diagnostics 101. We'll talk soon. Have a great weekend. And that one, let's end over here too, shall we? Have a great weekend, Facebook friends. Where's the button? End live video. There we go. Boop.